Welcome to the online edition of the People's Film Festival 2022. This is a hybrid event with both physical screenings and streaming online. And if you haven't already, you can get your pass at kinoshortfilm.com. We have a full access pass, which includes all cinema screenings, or an online only pass for £5, where you can watch all 40 official selections and vote for your favorite film to win. Over the past few days, we've had some amazing chats with some filmmakers, a few panel discussions about There's one on short film finance, one on short film distribution, with some great guests from Omeletto, Genera, Director's Notes, Short of the Week, Clipist. All of that is available to rewatch, but right now we're chatting with some other festival directors and programmers, so we can give filmmakers insights into what curators are looking for when programming short film, and how filmmakers can get the most out of the festival circuit in 2022. So first up, I have Denise Gossett from Shriekfest. Hello, Denise. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing great. How are you, Dustin?
Good. Welcome. And next up, Paul Anderson from the Exit 6 Film Festival.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Hello, everyone.
Absolutely. And Philip Ilson from London Short Film Festival and BFI, two heavy hitters. How are you?
I'm all good, thanks.
Danny Moltrasi from Raindance.
Hey, everyone. Really excited.
And Adrian from Bolton International Film Festival. Heck of a panel, guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the goal of tonight's conversation is to just kind of demystify the curation process for filmmakers, give them insights, put some friendly faces behind the submission form, and just make it so filmmakers know what they're getting into when they start applying to film festivals. I would like to start off just by finding a little bit more out about you as individuals and your personal background. Are you a filmmaker, a film lover, or both? And how long have you been curating short film? So, Denise?
Oh, okay. I am an actress first and foremost, and I have been in all kinds of movies, all kinds of TV. You can see me on The Office, Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson, I Saw the Light with Tom Hiddleston, just all kinds of things. And I have been doing Shriekfest. I founded it in 2001, so it's been 21 years already. And I am the festival director and the founder, and love film, love everything about the entertainment industry. And this is so exciting to be here. So thank you so much, Dustin.
Absolutely. I met you as a filmmaker myself. Your film festival, Shriekfest, is one of the only festivals to have a best under 18 category.
He won, guys. He won.
And I did win a very long time ago. And what I appreciated so much about that was most people's student film festivals was all geared toward college students. So it was so great that your festival actually included high school filmmakers in that as well.
Thank you. It's important. You guys are coming up in the ranks, right? Look at you now.
Paul, same questions.
Yeah, hello. So I'm festival director of Exit 6. This year, for the first time, taking the reins from Mark, the outgoing festival director, which is exciting and nerve-wracking in equal measure. So thank you for having me, for sure. Yeah, I've worked on the festival for 5 years now. So I kind of started on the selection panel and then went up through and then started doing submissions administrator, submissions director. So I've always been quite close to the submissions process, and now I'm running the thing. So yeah, best of luck to me, I think.
Great. Fantastic. Philip, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I founded the London Short Film Festival in 2004, co-founded. So we're about to hit the 20th edition, the next edition in January.
Wow, congrats.
The festival grew out of a short film club that I've been running since the late 90s. It was kind of underground alternative short film night in London. Kind of grew out of this sort of slightly left field underground scene at that time. Because there were a lot of these kind of film clubs. Well, I think there still are film clubs around, but yeah, there was quite a camaraderie. Anyway, the festival kind of started off the back of the film club. But it started very small, tiny, 4 days, one venue, didn't have any long-term plans to kind of keep it going. And here we are 20 years later and it's still going. And then I've been programming at the BFI, London Film Festival. I'm one of 4 shorts programmers there for about 12, 13 years, I think. So quite a while at that festival as well. I've worked at some other festivals as a programmer as well, but this is kind of not relevant for this conversation because those festivals don't exist anymore. That's the thing about festivals; they kind of come and go.
Yeah, they can come and go for sure. Well, definitely have some more questions specifically about those festivals, but we'll move on to Danny now for a little bit of intro from yourself. And I think you're from a little festival I haven't really heard much about, Raindance. No.
Yeah, I've worked at Raindance now for about 6, 7 years, maybe. Always focusing on the short films, and yeah, I mean, I studied film. I got involved with Raindance shortly afterwards, and just been plugging away there, going through a lot of short films in my stint here. But it's always good. It's always challenging. I think the most important thing is to always be challenged when you're doing this, and I really enjoy it.
Nice. Are you a filmmaker as well?
No, I don't make. So I did lots of film theory. That's kind of
Film.
Yeah. I'm no good at making films.
Know your limitations.
Yeah.
Adrian, tell me a bit about yourself and how you got into curation and your background.
So I used to make films. I used to make documentaries, social documentaries, and that went on for about 20 years. And I used to travel. And then every time I used to come home to my town of Bolton, I seemed to see it getting a little bit worse and worse each year. And then as Manchester started to become the sort of new Dubai, I started to feel that towns like Bolton fall in the shadow of these cities, or can do. And I really started to feel this cultural shadow falling over Bolton. And me and my mates and people at parties would moan about it, and I just decided to do something about it rather than just sit down and moan about it. So we started the film festival about 5 or 6 years ago, mainly because the big coincidence was that they built a cinema, a really good one, right in the heart of Bolton. So the two things came together really.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's probably how a lot of film festivals get started, is by people's frustrations and feeling the itch to change something and do it your own way. I know that's certainly true for the People's Film Festival as well. Now I want to get kind of into the nitty gritty and just ask kind of very specific questions in terms of, well, here, it's going to be kind of a quick fire round, right? Roughly how many short films do you watch annually? We'll go around in the same order.
600, 700, somewhere in there.
Paul?
I feel like much less than that, around about the 200 mark a year.
I mean, we have
you personally and your festival.
Sorry?
I said probably good to know you personally and your festival.
I mean, the festival gets London Short Film Festival gets about 5,000 submissions, but we work with a number of pre-selectors and other programmers. I'm the artistic director. I don't have an overall view of every film in the festival, although obviously I'm involved in putting the programs together and I watch a lot of short films. For the BFI, I'm a pre-selector and a programmer, as all 4 of us are. So again, that festival gets about, I don't know, 3,500, I think, slightly less, because it's obviously the BFI festival's more geared towards features, so the shorts are a bit of a lesser, still important though, but not so many coming through to that festival. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, a year it must run into quite a few thousand.
Danny?
For me personally.
For you personally, right?
Yeah, we get about 4,000-ish, 4,500, something like that, submissions a year. And personally, I mean, again, it's probably I'd be scared to think of how many I watch. It's again, it's in the thousands probably. But yeah, 4,000, something like that, I would say.
Personally.
No, they're not personally got. No.
Wow, personally, that's
As a
the festival.
festival,
How about you
firstly,
personally?
He doesn't do anything else.
No, I don't eat. No. But it's a lot. It's a more than I can ever think about.
And Adrian?
The festival receives about 2,500, and I do try and watch as many as I can, but there is a team watching them. But personally, I'm probably watching about 3,000 shots a year because I attend other festivals as well. And then I don't know, I still watch streaming or staff picks. So, you know, like your film festival now, Dustin, you know, you always dive into other people's stuff and just have a click around and see titles that you've not seen before and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as a filmmaker, I also try to, you know, attend festivals that I might have screened at. And you're always in that unique position as a filmmaker of, I mean, you try to be realistic about your own work, and you look at a film and you're like, okay, is this made it into the festival? Is it as good as mine? Is it worse than mine? Is it better than mine? And I've had those experiences putting my programmer hat on to be a film that I lost to, for example, up at Southport International Film Festival. I just reached out straight out to those filmmakers and was like, guys, submit to this festival. Your film is killer. So it really is about, going out and seeing what other festivals are doing and see what other work is out there rather than just what is coming to you, I find. So now we know kind of your submissions pool. My next question would be, what are you curating that down to? So Denise, you said roughly 600. What does that get down to?
Shorts, we do about 66, 67 each festival, and then the rest are features.
I am trying to block something right now.
Yeah, well,
That's there we go. Welcome to you. There's an option to put that user in timeout. Okay.
Wasn't me. Was not me.
That's what live Q&As are good for. Paul, same question.
So we end up with around similar numbers to you, Dustin. I think we end up with around 40 in the day itself. Mm-hmm. So there may be a few more submissions than I see. I try, again, like Adrian, I try and see all of them, but we have a team for a reason sometimes. So I don't necessarily get to see every single film. Certainly for the final selection, we've absolutely seen, or everyone on the panel would have seen all of those. So yeah, around about the 40, 45, depending on timings of the films, really. So.
And that's a lot to squeeze into one day. I mean, we're squeezing that into 2 days ourselves. So yeah. What's the average running time of those?
So we have maximum length of 15 minutes with around about a minute there's a minute's kind of grace, really. So if it overruns a little bit, then we'll be a bit understanding. But it's trying to program the blocks is always a delight.
Indeed. Philip, same question. What do you curate it down to?
Yeah, I think for London Short Film Festival, from submissions, I think it's around about 300 across the 10 days of the festival. But of course, there are special events, guest programs, retrospectives. So that's probably another 200 on top of that. So it's about 500 shorts in the festival altogether. LFF is a different beast. As I said earlier, the shorts are a smaller part of the program. So we're coming down to a lot less, probably, well, before COVID, it was about 80, but we brought it down a little bit for the online festival in 2020. We went back physical for LFF last year, and it went up to about 60, I think. So I think we're looking maybe a bit less, actually, maybe 50. So that's what we're looking at doing this year.
Okay. And just a follow-up question with that, what exactly was the thinking behind doing less online rather than more? Because from my experience, I was always limited to how much space I had in the cinema. It was like, you can book a cinema for 2 hours. So yes, I'd like to do X amount of shorts, but really it depends on the running time of those shorts. And when I went online, it was, I can program longer shorts that I love and more shorts that I love.
I mean, the festival shrunk for the online version anyway. I mean, I'm not involved in these decisions because I'm a short film programmer, but we were told by the festival office, by the DFF office, this is what you're doing this year. But also there was lots of issues around the fact that the shorts would all be available for free on the BFI player, so they wanted to limit it and didn't want to kind of overrun the whole festival with hundreds of shorts. Even though they were free, they wanted to keep it a bit more compact. And that was the same last year, that all the shorts that were also available on the BFI player, even though they were in their programs in cinemas as well.
So it was more distracting from the features, was kind of the
I mean, I don't think distracting, but yeah, I think the whole festival was a bit smaller for the online version. Yeah.
I think there's a few festivals done it that way, Dustin, and I think the thinking is that you're putting a bigger spotlight on each individual film. It's not that you're trying to detract from what's going on. It's just that you're giving it more amplification.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting to have different perspectives and different reasonings of why we all do our own things differently in our own lanes. Danny, same question to you.
We screen, including narratives and docs and animation, about 150, but there's not really, I'm sure with all of you, it's not a set kind of like number we go thinking of. It's kind of, especially with now that stuff's hybrid, we can afford to have some that are, or we have had some that are online only. So we kind of settle around that 100, 150 number. And then if there's more, there's more. If there's fewer, there's fewer. And in the past, we've kind of been a bit more flexible, but we try to keep it around that number.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Adrian?
Again, I don't really have a set number. It tends to work at around about the 300 mark. We run over 5 days, and we run 3 or 4 venues at once. So it really comes down to the screen time. I think the number 300 again is a bit like Phil. You have some guest programs, and then at Bolton, as well as drama, documentary, and animation, we do program fashion, dance, and music videos, which tend to be very short. The fashion especially can be a minute or 2 long. So the figure 300 can seem quite high, but I think it's probably because people think you think of drama or documentary, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't actually know what we program for drama and documentary and animation, but it's a good old chunk of films anyway.
Yeah, I think the year I was there, it was about 300, which I think was 2 years ago. So yeah, good to know. So now I want to just know a little bit about your processes as far as the kind of the key decision makers involved. What does your team look like in terms of pre-selectors, programmers? How small or big is that core team? Denise?
I have every year about 40 judges, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. And they help whittle down. And then often I will bring in another set of judges if there's a lot of ties, which often there is. And then they help with that. And then sometimes I even have a smaller set of judges to help pick all the winners.
Makes sense. Interesting. Paul?
So we have a team of around about 11, 12 judges any one time. Any film that comes in would be watched by 3 judges. They would score it. And then if there's any major disparities between those 3 judges, they get discussed in a panel meeting, of which we had last night, which was a lot of fun, actually. I do enjoy them. I do enjoy the back and forth on why a film should be in and why it shouldn't. So, and then what we'll do from there is, based on the official selection, we will pick what's called the Judges' Six. And that will be the top 6 films that we have picked. And then in past years, we've had Bern Gorman judge, for example, and we'll try and get someone from the industry in to judge that film and pick the overall winner of the festival. So it's quite a fun process. But yeah, the to and fro in and the panel discussions are great. And I kind of need to take a back seat now because I did submissions director job before. I've got a new submissions director now, so it's kind of letting him lead the conversation and me just kind of slinking into the background a little bit and just talking when I'm asked. So
doing your director's duties. Philip, obviously you have 2 different processes with 2 different festivals. What do those look like?
I mean, with London Short Film Festival, we have an international programmer and a UK programmer. This is mainly to sort of organize the 2 competition programs for UK and international, and then all the other programs outside of those competition programs are mixed, so UK and international. I mean, the festival, since it started, was very British focused. We only opened to international about 6 years ago, but now the international submissions are far greater than the UK submissions. So for UK, we have only one pre-selector, although we're also taking on a couple of younger people to get involved in the process of looking at the films for UK work. And then for international, we have 5 pre-selectors. We did have separate documentary programmer and pre-selector the last few years, but I think discussion amongst the team is that we'll keep the documentaries within the general programs. Even if we make separate documentary programs, we won't have a separate documentary programmer, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I suppose if you add everyone up across the whole pre-selection programming team, it's going to be pushing about 10, I think, or just 9 or 10. With the London Film Festival, as I said, there's 4 of us. We're all equal. We get batches of films to watch. Anything that gets passed forward for a second view, then someone else within those 4 people will watch, and then we come together with meetings and decide on the 5 or 6 programs that eventually get put together.
Okay.
So there's no pre-selectors involved. We are the pre-selectors, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I act as a pre-selector myself. I have a couple other pre-selectors as well, but yeah, I know what that's like. Danny, what's the process of Raindance?
It sounds kind of similar, yeah. So there's 4 of us as a kind of core, and between us we try and we watch everything, but we do occasionally get support from other people. And during that process, we rate individually and then pass things forward to each other. And then eventually, once we've all seen the ones that one of us recommended at least, then that's when we start deciding when things can fit the programs and when things can match each other and so on. So it's very much initially us doing the filtering, and then we move on to curating in general.
Mm-hmm. And then I know you're specifically working on shorts. Is there any crossover between shorts and features programmers?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. So we before COVID, we used to do a lot of pre-features, and then we would pair up like 5-minute shorts with a feature film that would maybe fit on a similar theme or whatever it might be. Now so in the previous years, we've also had country focuses, so we would then pair up a short film from a specific country or region with a feature film. So we would do that as well. But in general, we keep kind of on the same level, but we are also separate, if that makes sense. So there is some crossover, not a huge amount. There is some.
Interesting. Adrian, what's your process look like?
Well, again, like Phil, in a way, there's sort of 3 of us that are the pre-programmers / programmers. So some films are very obvious that just, it takes one person to look at, and then depending on the score, 2 people will look at it, and then if it's divided, it becomes 3 people, and so forth. So it's a sort of a bit more organic, I guess, in the way that we have a certain benchmark of scores, and once things go over a certain score, then we all jump onto the film and look at it again, sort of thing. I think, generally speaking, I'm expecting this year somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 shorts, and you would expect to get about 550, 600, that go through to the long list, and then from there, with half it again down to the 300 that generally sort of make up the program. So it's that last bit where it becomes a bit more of a discussion, really. Where it all becomes a bit of like who wants what and what's going in.
Right. Do you announce your long list publicly, or is that all privately in-house?
No, it's all private. Yeah.
Gotcha. The next questions I want to ask are more around themes, and if you guys have festival strands. Obviously, Denise, yours is easy. Yours is a horror festival.
Right.
What specifically are you looking for when you're programming shorts? Is it just any type of short, or do you segment it into body horror and slasher films? And is there any segmenting within the horror world that you program?
Well, I would say, like, to start out, we do not like separate like that. We're just watching and picking the best, and they go into a yes, a maybe, or a no pile. And then as we're starting to program, that's when we go, okay, we cannot have 20 zombie movies. You know, it's just ridiculous, right? You can't. So you start looking at it that way, and you say, okay, so how can we fit these together? We also get some sci-fi and some thrillers. So trying to mix all that, because you don't want a whole block. I know there's festivals out there that will do like an entire block of zombies, but I personally like to pepper zombie, slasher, you know, maybe a thriller here, or, you know, those sort of things all in a block. Horror comedies are big too. So that's basically kind of how it works with us, is we narrow down to the best, and then from that we'll pick and choose. But you know what, if it's a great film, if we have 20 great zombie films, they're all getting in. Seriously, they're all going to get in. I'll make it work somehow. I'll call it the zombie block or something, because I'm not going to reject a film that really should be screening just because it's a zombie film. You know, I'd like to say real quick too, this is so fascinating, because being a horror film festival and you guys all genre festivals, to hear the numbers, like, Dustin, if there's time later, I would love to ask the question, how do you guys manage it all? Because like, I know a lot of festivals do everything online, you know, databases and stuff. I'm like a hard copy girl. So I'll have an entry form with every film or every screenplay. And then on that will go judges' notes, judges' votes, so that when I'm looking at X film X, I can see this is what everyone voted, this is their content. I have everything right there. And then when we're, you know, making our schedule, block one, I can take the pieces of paper and say these films are here. So I'm really curious to hear how thousands of films work out later if we have time.
Yeah, absolutely. I already have some tips and tricks that I know we use at our festival.
Good.
But keeping in the theme of the original question, before we get to that, Paul, yeah, how do you guys tend to curate? Is there strands, themes that you do in individual screening blocks, comedy, drama? Do you like to mix it? Do you like to pepper it like Denise does?
We like to mix it up, to be honest. Like, it's in programming is like probably I would say one of the hardest bits of the putting the festival together, to be honest, because you kind of sit there, you've got all these fantastic films, like, and again, I would say the best get through, and then you kind of deal with what you've got, and then you might sit, like, from my perspective, having been to festivals, like, I don't necessarily want to sit through 5 hard-hitting dramas in a row, as great as those 5 hard-hitting dramas may be. And I think this is where it's very important that festival curators and directors understand that if people are paying to come to your festival, the festival itself is as much of a form of entertainment as the films that you're showing. So I think you have some responsibility there to acknowledge there's an audience that are looking to have a good time, and not be hammered over the head repeatedly with you know, hard-hitting dramas. Not that I have a problem with hard-hitting dramas, I love them, but I think it serves my example well. So we might have a hard-hitting drama, we might have a comedy, we might have a horror. We'll try and mix up the blocks as much as we can to try and keep as much variety. But in terms of what we're looking for, we're not genre specific. We don't have strands of the festival. We like seeing comedies as a group. Don't get me wrong, when we get together, that's always entertaining. But I'm a huge horror and sci-fi fan, so that kind of I skew towards those, but other people certainly are not so much. So it's a mixed judging panel, and we go for as mixed submissions as we can find, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, ours is very similar. Our theme is short film, so in a program you're gonna get bunches of highs and lows, and it's gonna take you to some interesting places. Philip, do you want to talk about your programming?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're open to everything, so we're not, we don't. Within the festival, there is kind of genre programs in the sense that we do have a midnight movies. At London Short Film Festival, we do have a comedy program, which we always open up with. But, across the rest of the festival, some of the themes come out of just, as the team are talking about things that we're seeing, it's quite sort of organic in that sense, I think. And kind of the same with the London Film Festival. There's no set themes. I mean, again, things have changed over the years. I don't know if you remember, there was the strands that they had, Cult and Laugh and Love, and that's, you know, we were fitting shorts into those strands, but now that's not a thing anymore, which it wasn't a thing when I started the festival. That was, you know, the programs are much more, again, organic over what works, what comes together. So yeah, there's, you know, in terms of what we're looking for, I suppose it's that eternal question that's can never be answered. You know, we don't know what we're looking for until we see it. So you want to be surprised, you want to see something you haven't seen before, which again is a kind of, you know, abstract concept when you're watching thousands of films. How do you see something that you haven't seen before? Or you want to see films from other voices, just, yeah, that, to be surprised, I think, with in terms of who's making the film, what the film's about. Yeah, if all that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. Danny, same question.
Yeah, well, there's no theme that we have to start with. What we kind of do towards the end is, you might think, okay, we've got 5 films here where the landscape, for example, is the key to the story here, and we'll group them together, and then you can kind of see, like Paul was saying, we don't want them all to be heavy or all to be too similar. You still want a kind of varied story in it. So we'll kind of try and group them like that, but that's very much at the end of the process when we've got maybe, for example, 50 films that we think these are the ones that we want, definitely, and then we can start fitting other films in around these 4 or 5 films that fit together, and then we can plug in one that we also like that fits perfectly. So we kind of try and keep it as flexible until very, very late, and then we start getting programs and themes through that rather than the other way around.
So it's kind of finding your centerpiece film within that program, and then
4 or 4 films that will like that we feel really complement each other, and then plug the ones in around it that will still fit that as well. But if there was like maybe any doubt between 2 or 3 films, you can say, okay, these ones work in this program. And they complement each other so well, and it all kind of eventually falls into place. And like you were saying, Denise, I really like having all the films written down in front of me and being able to like literally cross that one off, saying that one doesn't go there. I find it a lot easier to kind of like then visualize the program in that way by having all the names written down, the running times, that's it, and all that kind of stuff. But it really helps me seeing that theme come to life like that as well.
Cool. Do you ever end up with all the blocks programmed except one, and you just have leftovers, and it's the hodgepodge block?
I try not to have a hodgepodge, but I try to avoid it. I try to have a theme. They normally come, even if there is like you've got like 4 or 5 at the end that you're maybe unsure about, then you can still kind of get something there, even in the very kind of worst case scenario. But that very rarely happens.
Nice. Adrian, same question.
Well, similar to Danny and Phil, really, in the, you know, there's no set theme. You know, you respond to the work that's coming in, and then that dictates the outcome. So yeah, I don't know. You know, personally, I take control of certain programs, and Zoe takes control of certain programs, and then we have interns with us, and they become part of the conversation because we like to listen to a young opinion, a young set of eyes, because ultimately, you know, they're seeing things in a different way as well. So yeah, it's quite organic in the way it works. But I like to think that a block is, as a programmer, it's your chance to make a feature with other people's films. You know, so you're taking people on an emotional journey by using small films in the same way that a feature is creating blocks of emotion. So, you know, personally, I'd like to wake people up when they arrive in a block. You know, and there's that sense that you're on a roller coaster and about to set off on a journey. And then I want to settle down into something. And like the other guys have mentioned, you know, this idea of there being lighter films or comedies, or, you know, more digestible and easy to watch films, as opposed to those that are very cerebral and and quite demanding. You know, I think Paul touched on it, that you know, if you've got a block of films that are just hard hitting issues, that's actually exhausting and quite depressing to be in, you know. So it's trying to use all the emotions that the short films are giving you, and to put them into a block that works well together. I think there are other things that come into it as well. I think Phil's touched on it, in that, you know, it's about different voices, it's about different class structures. You know, the days have gone where we see a lot of white middle class sort of rich kids making films and stuff. So we do look at who are making the films and who is on screen and what the story's about, and the geography of where they're coming from, not just in the UK but around the world. I think if an international film festival is calling itself international, then, you know, again, it shouldn't just be made up of you know, Western countries. It should also look to different parts of the world that are economically not always able to enter film festivals. So it's a lot of different things, to be honest. It's very complex, but yeah, the outcome hopefully feels like you're watching a feature film.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's very interesting how you talk about the beats of it and everything as well. Yeah, when I program, I definitely do something similar, like try to wake them up with something exciting or funny in the beginning, and then I typically try to leave people before intermission with something that's light and palatable as well, to spark conversation.
Yep, that's what
and
I do too. Something funny.
Yeah. Something
funny. Scare them in the middle.
Yeah.
Gross them out partway through. And then give them something to laugh about at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me look through my questions here. So this is one of my rules that I have at my festival. I mean, say rule, it's a kind of a loose guideline that I give to all the programmers, because we're a festival that's run by filmmakers for filmmakers. So everybody who's on the curation team is looking at it from that perspective. And I tell them, imagine you're the filmmaker, and if you have to make the choice between these two films, will you look at that film and say, yeah, I see why that made it in instead of mine? Or will you go, oh my gosh, that made it in instead of mine? That's my golden rule, I will say, for my festival. What's the golden rule, if you have one, for your festival? Ooh, hard hitting.
You know, probably similar to what you just said. When you have to send out those horrible letters that they're not in, that's kind of how I think too. Is I give free passes out to everyone who submits. So if they want to come see why, and I think it's pretty obvious when they do come and see, they can go, oh, okay. I think it's, and now the ones that just barely miss the cut, I'll try to explain to them. But it is very much what you are saying, that they will often come and go, oh my gosh, I understand now why my film didn't get in, and I see what I need to work on, that sort of thing. So I think if the filmmaker is honest with themselves,
True.
They will see that. Because we know some of them aren't. They have a little ways to go before they hit there. But
they just already know they're a genius.
Right. Bless them.
Indeed. Paul, do you have a golden rule?
Yeah, I think so. Weirdly enough, I was having this conversation. We've got some new judges this year, and I had this conversation with some people last night. It's kind of everything gets a fair roll of the dice. I think it's very easy to see kind of like a big splash, like a BFI funded short. If you get BFI splashed across the front of the screen, then immediately your mind goes, okay, I'm going to, maybe there's a little bit of bias that can creep in, or you see like a big name in the cut. When you see like a big name appear in the short film, you're like, okay, and then I think it's quite easy to be kind of carried away with that and like super high production value and that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, it's great to see those films. It's great to see prestige short films. I love it. But I think from our perspective, it's just everything gets a fair roll of the dice. Don't just don't just assume that's going to get in because it's got a name star in it, or because it's funded by this person, or because it looks incredible, or it's clearly had thousands and thousands of pounds spent on it. So yeah, everything gets a fair shot would be our golden rule. If we didn't have one, but now we do, so thank you.
Yeah, there you go. And then that being said, just as a follow-up, if would you say then it then gets boiled down to story more so than necessarily production value?
Yeah, I would say so. I think certainly from my perspective, what I'm looking for when I'm watching films is for something to grab me quickly. Ultimately, they've got a maximum of 15 minutes, and I think I've always said this about short films. I think sometimes it's a lot harder to make an engaging short film than it is to make a feature, because you've got so little time to engage the audience with the characters and kind of bring emotion out of the audience. So some films I've seen that are 5-6 minutes long, they've literally left me in bits. And they've done that in 5 or 6 minutes, and that's such an incredible achievement that someone can do that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Something just to grab me in terms of story. I think acting, performances. Like again, I like horror. I do. Atmosphere is a big one for me, and pacing, I think, is the one thing everyone hear me bang on about the most. It's all about pacing. Absolutely, it's a very important thing for me.
Another thing that I'll just throw out here is we're a feedback film festival, so everybody who submits to our festival gets a direct response from us with a form that says what we loved about your film, what we thought you did great, and then a paragraph that what we think you can improve upon. And it's always structured very nicely. And the number one thing that we tell more people than not is your sound was really, really poor, and it just pushed the entire production level down. Couldn't hear, hard to understand, hard to connect with, and it detracted from it. That's one tip that I would give to filmmakers that are listening right now.
Or the
Sound.
actors, cast good actors, and then edit it tight. Come on, tight. Sorry.
True. Good tips all around. Philip, is there one golden rule, two golden rules for two festivals?
I think, what Paul was saying, that's sort of, that's relevant to both the festivals I work with, really. I mean, it was interesting you were talking about those kind of high-end polished films, and this is the majority of work that we get, really, is that kind of very polished drama. And I talk about this quite a lot, that it's just it's not interesting. It might be the best sound, the best cinematography, the best acting, but if it's not grabbing you, if it just looks like as I've said before, if it looks like an episode of a soap opera, of a TV soap opera, like an episode of EastEnders or whatever, which you do see a lot of short films like that, then it's just not going to make the grade. It might be the most technically accomplished film there is, but it needs more than that. You need to be grabbed, you need to be excited, not just sort of lulled into kind of a boredom, as it were. I think much the same as what both Paul and Denise was saying. Really, it's So no specific golden rule, I don't think, at this stage, beyond what's been said already.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, what you say about dramas, and obviously a lot do come in that are very polished, and I feel kind of just the awards circuit. You look at the Oscars, you look at things, in general. There's kind of this theme that you have to do a drama to prove yourself as a serious filmmaker, and then that's what festivals would want, because I made something that looks like Power of the Dog or something like that, and so you get a variety of those type of films. I mean, it's very interesting, I found, even though I've only been programming for a shorter period of time, about 4 years, you see a feature that's a big hit, and you see all the shorts that it spawned over the next 2 years. That's a very interesting trend that I've noticed. Has anybody else noticed that as well?
100%, yeah, all the time. What I feel filmmakers fall into a trap of is trying to make films that they think will be accepted by festivals. And I feel like I've done this long enough to be able to see through that. And I want to see a film that, even if there's, it's a bit bumpy on the way, but you can see that it's really their film. They've poured everything into it. It's their story. It's unique. It's all these things. I don't want to see, like, to echo, when I want to see the same BFI funded film over and over and again. It's like, I've seen a million of those. I want to see something that's a little bit more risk taking, you know. And if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but it's at least you're doing the right thing. And I think that's far more important than aiming to please me. You shouldn't ever be aiming to please me.
Interesting.
Please yourself. Make your own film and make it the way you want it to be.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great advice. I think just an interesting case study that I can share with that is, I did this very similar thing. I made a classy drama. I submitted it to a bunch of film festivals, got a ton of rejection, was very upset. My next film was, I don't know if it was exactly my next film, but one of my next ones was just this rough little comedy. Didn't have any expectations for it. Wasn't even going to put it in the festival circuit. My lead actor says, oh, I'll finance a couple festivals. So he throws a couple $100 to put it in some festivals. And it got into more festivals than any film I'd ever done.
Yeah.
And that was the film I was not going to try in the festival circuit.
Interesting.
I hear that story quite a lot with filmmakers that put so much into a sort of polished drama, get into 0 festivals, chuck something out, and then it basically gets into, you know, many festivals. It seems to be a common, which kind of proves that, you know, festivals are looking for that thing that you were just saying, Danny, the thing that sort of the honesty of something, you know, that comes out in the film when you watch it.
Yeah, and but like when the sound quality isn't there so much or whatever, you can kind of forgive that stuff. You can see the passion in it. It's a bit cheesy and cliche, I guess, but when you see the passion and the heart that's poured into it, it makes a huge difference. It really does.
So you say it makes sense that would be your golden rule then, seeing the passion in the work.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Ignore the A-list celebs or whatever. Don't fall for that trap. Just look for someone or an actor or whatever who's really putting everything into it.
Interesting. Adrian, do you have a golden rule for the Bolton Film Festival?
Yeah, I don't show any crap films. I just show good ones.
Plain and simple. There you go.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I feel for filmmakers when they watch these panels, you know, because we've all sat through them, we've all seen them, and you're trying to describe something that is a bit indescribable. So when I talk about this on panels, I don't know, like popular film. When you go to the cinema to watch your X-Men and popular films or whatever, if we say that is the sort of cheeseburger, we all love a good cheeseburger. There's nothing wrong with that. But on any good festival, I feel like you can put on a buffet, you can put it on a spread, and up towards the far end of the table, the avant-garde side of the table, the experimental, the pushing the boundaries sort of stuff, you'll find that them foods and those things that you've never heard of, you know, or the olives or the hummus or whatever, that stuff that's just a bit more different and special to other things. And I think, you know, certainly at Bolton, you'll find more of the films up towards that end of the table, the stuff that you've not seen before and you've never tried before. Because as programmers, that's what we're trying to do, really. You know, you like you say, Dustin, you'll see people sitting at a festival and going, why did you program this over mine? Because my production values are great and my story is great and this is what I see at the cinema. But for us, we want to push the boundaries. We want to get people to try things that they've never tried before. And that's what we do in our real life. If you think about food, when we're a kid, we try things that's safe. But as we get older, we experiment and we try different foods and we try different things. And I think good programming. I remember seeing Phil on a panel once, and he said every short film should be experimental, you know, because that is your place to take a chance, you know. To once you get to features, it does become more of a formula. So at this point, you know, I think Phil's right. Take a risk, take a chance. Those things of I need to shoot it on a certain camera, none of that matters. You know, I've screened films that were shot on the phone. You know, stuff that was shot on a VHS camera from 1980s or whatever. You know, but good sound, good acting. That's clear, you know. But the idea of trying something different is probably going to go in your favour. You know, step outside the boundaries.
Interesting. Yep. It's sometimes the scary leap, but it's the leap that pays off. My next question, we will be wrapping up here soon, guys, is more specifically for Denise and Philip, since you guys have been curating for so long. I'm very curious to know about what's really changed in the course of how long you've been curating. Because, I mean, from my vantage point, it seems like there's never been a more competitive time to be a short filmmaker. Mm. You know, you get more submissions year after year after year after year. And while, you know, the standard can be very high as a filmmaker, having that, everybody having access to that technology and everybody throwing stories out, it feels like it's easier to get lost than ever before. What is your guys' perspective on that? Is that a true assessment? Am I wrong in that? What do you think?
There definitely are more filmmakers now because of the access. You like someone said, you can do it on your phone. And what I found the most interesting in horror is in the beginning, we hardly had any female projects. And now we have all kinds of female projects submitted. So that's a huge leap. But yes, there are, but the cream still always rises to the top. So just because all these people can throw together, I remember last year getting so many pandemic films submitted that people had shot in their apartments by themselves. And just because there was so many doesn't mean they were good. They were just people living in the moment, but which I think is great. And I think people should make films, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ugly, make them. But yes, it does. Let's see, your question, is there more competition? Yes and no, because there's more filmmakers, but the filmmakers that were already here are just getting better and better. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. But, and then I guess, so what you're saying, what I take from it is it's not necessarily such a bad thing for the filmmaker, but it probably is a much more of an admin issue for the festival curators.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm experiencing anyway, is a lot more and more to sift through. But I feel like we're getting a lot of the best stuff now. And I don't know if it's because these filmmakers, you know, like you know, you've been around since you were under 18. Maybe you've just hit a point now where all of your talent is officially coming through. And so I think there's a lot of newbies that, you know, are still kind of struggling to find their ways. But if there's more competition, I don't know. I think it's just because all you guys are just getting better and better and better through the years.
Well, I think that's what's so important too, and is my philosophy with filmmaking is get out there, try, jump in, make something that's imperfect, and make your next one better. And I've seen so many filmmakers just put on the brakes because they can't handle doing anything that isn't perfect.
Right.
So they maybe focus way too much time on this one project, and then it actually prevents their growth. Right. And then knowing whether your project is ready for the festival circuit is a big one for me, which is why I love our feedback program, because it's come to us, we'll give you an honest opinion, and then don't spend £1,000 submitting to festivals, spend £1,000 making your next short better.
Right. And launch at 80%. You don't have to be at 100. Launch it, get it out there, just do it. Because like you said, that film you didn't want to put a lot of effort into got into festivals. So you never know.
I think it's important to identify that all you know, there are lots of different types of festivals, you know. So you know, you've got to identify the you know, the festival for you, the one that
exactly
your film is right for, you know, and that comes from, you know, the pandemic was great because you could attend so many different festivals online and get an idea of their programming, you know. But the other thing is just to ask other people, to ask the other filmmakers and sort of say, what do they program at Glasgow? You know, have you been down to London Film Festival? What do they like? And try and get a sense of what people like, because there is a place for a good cheeseburger, but you know, some people only like olives. You know, they really want something that, you know, is quite different. To find out where it's meant, you know, where your film's meant to be going.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like phone specific festivals, everything's shot on a phone. There's lots of, you can get into the nitty gritty of something that's exactly the type of thing that you're making, for sure. Philip, before we leave here, same question as far as, because you have such a history of watching short film, and I really would love to see
it's a question you do get asked a lot, but there's always been a lot of short film. Even when we were doing the film club back in the 90s, we were seeing, I think there was a bit of a year zero in the 90s, in the sense that all of a sudden people could start buying cheap equipment and sending tapes out to festivals. I always wonder how festivals kind of dealt with submissions before VHS. I mean, they would have had to have been sending 16mm prints around watch and to set them all up on. I mean, that's how they would have worked. Because, you know, obviously with you know, video, obviously it started to become a lot easier, and now it's even easier because of, you know, just sending a file or a link to a Vimeo link, you know. So in that sense, yes, there are more films. I think any festival that grows over a period of time is always going to get more films as time goes on. I mean, the likes of Sundance get around 9,000 or 10,000 shorts, you know, because they've got that reputation. They're Oscar affiliated as well. So that's going to automatically attract a lot more filmmakers. So yeah, I suppose the changes that I've seen, kind of echoing what you said, Denise, you know, you've seen a lot more women in horror coming through. I think for shorts, we've always had quite a strong turnout of women filmmakers right from the start, really. And certainly when I remember starting the festival, you know, that's when people like Andrea Arnold and Carol Morley and Clio Barnard were coming through with their shorts. And I remember, you know, we were quite big champions of their work. We really liked what those filmmakers were doing, and it's great that they're all out there, you know, making their features. I suppose, yeah, that sort of echoing that would be sort of filmmakers from more diverse backgrounds, filmmakers of color, definitely seeing a lot more, you know, within the UK and internationally as well, from those territories that you wouldn't normally see films from. So those are the changes that are happening, which is all really positive, I think, and, you know, really exciting to see those new voices coming through. So yeah, there's a, you know, I'm very positive about the future, even though there's a lot more work. It's still really fascinating what is coming through and what we're seeing.
Nice.
I remember VHS. I remember getting VHSs out to judges. They have to meet me somewhere or pick them up, and I'm like, ah. So then when Without a Box came, and now Film Freeway, of course, I was like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah, I mean, when we started in 2004, the first couple of years of the festival, we were doing VHS. But even with screening, you know, we only moved to DCP probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think we were still, you know, running the festival from tape, from Beta SP, Beta, Digibeta. Yeah, you know.
Yes, but, even some films.
There you go. Yeah.
When I first sent my films off, it was on Beta SP. But
right,
thinking back now, there was no internet, and I'm thinking, how did I find out where the festivals were? how did I know where most of them do? You know, we really can't.
We do still. I mentioned earlier about special events. I love showing film. We do have quite a lot of events where we do show 16mm, especially archive events. Or, you know, it's really nice to have that physical thing as well within our festival. Is, you know, to have those 16mm projectors running and to have those, you know, you can see it on the screen. So that's really good fun to do events with that kind of, you know, analog technology. We've been doing that every year, really.
I think on the you know, what Phil talked about the diversity and the way that film festivals are trying to change the industry. You know, the figures for women in film are diabolical. for people of colour, again, it's really bad and stuff. But I don't think, filmmakers who are watching this shouldn't think that if it is just 3 white middle class guys that you're not going to get programmed, because you will. You put the film in first, the film goes first and foremost, and then when you're in the second round of programming, it's then that you turn to these other things, and you look at films and films that are equal with each other. Then you start looking at diversity and what you can do to change the industry. So I wouldn't want people to think that they couldn't have a chance of getting in just because they're white and got some money or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you hear that a lot, that filmmakers, oh, my film won't get in because no one's interested in me anymore. But that's not the case at all. We want to try, to mix it up a lot more. But those films, everyone's relevant. And also, I think I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. So maybe that's
too many shorts you've been watching.
Too many shorts. Yeah.
Well, I am conscious of the time, guys. We did go over an hour by 1 minute. I have a million more questions, but thank you so much for letting me pick your brains. It's just been really fascinating for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your time and your expertise with us. Just a quick shout out about our panel tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're having a panel on filmmaker mental health, and this is a perfect segue. It's a conversation centered around helping filmmakers cope with the unprecedented amount of rejection in the creative industry. And our guest is Rebecca Day, a qualified psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, and freelance documentary producer who founded Film in Mind, a therapy service for filmmakers. We hope to see you there. That's happening at 8 p.m. BST tomorrow time. And for now, we'll sign off. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting all of you.